Thank you. The chair is just arriving and we'll be going live momentarily.
Okay.
All right, we are live, correct? All right, we are, welcome everyone to the Advocacy Advisory Committee for Tuesday, September 6th. And back to this committee after being off for a couple month hiatus. So glad to see everybody back again. We'll start off with a roll call. If we can do a roll call, please.
Mayor Hagan.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Present.
Acting Mayor Croson.
Here.
All members are present. We also have Councillor Middleton Hope and Councillor Campbell in chambers.
Excellent, thank you. And we'll do the acknowledgement statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. So move on to the adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? From either yourself. Thank you, Councillor Middleton Hope. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got adoption of the agenda right here. Sorry, you are out. It's Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel. Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
There are none,
right.
Correct? Okay.
All right, I'll call the vote on that then.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That's right. That so carries. Next, we'll move on to the consent agenda from Acting Mayor Croson. Be resolved the minutes of the Advocacy Advisory Committee meeting held on June 24th, 2022 be approved, and the Mayor and City Clerk designate be authorized to sign the same. Acting Mayor Croson.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? Guess not, if I'm seeing all three here in favor. Thank you. That carries. We'll move on to 4.1. Now, this is part of the consent agenda. Sorry, 6.1, submission from Carly, Chief of Staff, regarding Advocacy Framework Review. Go ahead, Ms. Kleisinger.
Good afternoon. What you saw in your package is the City Council Advocacy Framework that was approved by Council last October 2021. So in an effort to, I guess as we go down this advocacy journey, we thought it would be worthwhile to go and take a step back to the framework that we had approved, or Council had approved last year, and just have a bit of a discussion on it because quite a few things have changed since then. And so the document that we have was intended as the framework for council to then build upon. So primarily led by Councillor Kaufman of the time, we really wanted to have something in place to say, what are our principles? What are the responsibilities of the advocacy committee so that we make sure it's not lost moving forward? So fast forward almost a year from then, with quite a few things have changed. And one of them is that we've now hired an intergovernmental strategist whose focus is to take what comes from the advocacy committee and action it from administration. So I just wanted to bring this document as a discussion point, as we've got quite a few new members that might have never seen it before, to have a quick discussion about what it means, and if there's a desire to sort of keep it as is, build upon it, look at something a little more robust. One of the other things that has changed is that council in your action plan put advocacy priorities right into the document. And so you've created a really strong roadmap to say these are the things that are important to us, and given administration really good direction to move forward with a lot of the items. So if you look at the document, if any of you have it before you, the principles of the committee is the leading, guiding, and ensuring advocacy efforts are focused and aligned based on clear priorities set by council. So some of this is...
Just a quick question. I do have questions coming in. Did you want to wait till you're done, or did you want to take them?
Oh, get me to stop talking. Yeah, please, I'll take that.
All right, I'll just have a question. Acting Mayor Croson.
Thank you. Thank you for Carly for sending this and for reminding us of what's there. My brain, and I know you and I have talked about it, and seeing that you've put it here just reminds me. We will be having provincial election probably next year, federal election, depending on who you talk to, anytime between 6 months and 2 years. Some of our other communities are really good at using the elections to help with their community advocacy. So they create websites to encourage their residents, et cetera, to ask during the elections, things that are provincial and federal jurisdiction. Do we have that specifically outlined in our advocacy plan, or is that something we could add there to have, housing is a concern, the election's coming up, ask the provincial government this, airport grants might be a concern, federal elections coming up, ask federal candidates this. Do we have anything like that in the plan, or should we?
That's an excellent segue, Councillor Croson, because I think that what I would say is this advocacy framework was a really good start. And that's what it was intended for, to say, let's not lose this with a new council. We've got some people that spent 4 years or more really saying, I wish we would have been better at this. I wish we would have done this differently. And so that's all this is. And what I would say to you is we do have a lot of good knowledge and information that we can add to strengthen it. And I think that example that you're using is a perfect example to say, we have a platform to say this is what, and if other municipalities are doing that, there's a lot of best practices that we could draw from.
Well, because I'm sure, the provincial government and federal government hear from us a lot. We send a lot of letters. It's different if they hear from the community members who are, who could make our voice a lot louder. And there has to be a way that we can, I said, encourage that. So that would be where I would see is, how do we take our advocacy, because we do write the letters and we talk to people, but how do we make it the community's advocacy?
Great questions. And that's something, obviously, capturing that information, Cardi?
Yeah, thank you. So this framework, I would say, is the why. and why council wants to advocate. What are your principles? What are the responsibilities? And then one of the things that it'll segue as well into Alberta municipalities and Team Lethbridge is the how. And that's where we've been working behind the scenes on direct advocacy plans, some directed by council for housing and homelessness, and then others that we know just need to be done as part of family physician recruitment. So we have this framework in place that our goal would be with the will of council that we would make it a little bit more robust, have a little meatier, but then we would also, any subject that you identify as something that you want more action, not just the principles, the responsibilities, we would have a plan. And so the plans that we have in the works that would complement, just want to make sure I don't forget them, that we would complement this framework is family physician recruitment and retention, ambulance dispatch and ground ambulance, which we know has been something that's been underway for a long time, supportive and affordable housing and supports, and then water and wastewater plant expansions. And so those are the ones that we are currently working on as that supplementary information, and something that we would hope to equip any members of council who are attending Team Lethbridge or Alberta municipalities, but then also in the everyday advocacy efforts of specifically the mayor as the lead advocate, but then anyone who's been named as a key leader or player on specific topics.
Okay. So following up on that, that'd be one of the principles I would put into this, is working with the community as part of advocacy, because again, it amplifies it, and everything you're saying kind of ties in with that, because yeah, there's a lot of issues that will affect the public, of course, in there.
And I think in part of working with the community, we would notice that there's specific community members or organizations that are great influencers that we would want to key in on those as well. So you're absolutely right.
Councillor Campbell.
Just a quick question. Just when you talk about the community, what will be our relationship going forward with economic development? They're part of this, right? Is this something that needs to be defined, or is this just something that's they're part of our relationship? I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because any of the research that I was doing to look back and what we had done to date, a lot of what council has keyed in on that we're working on specific advocacy plans is the ones that I listed that are a lot of issues that are directly affecting the municipality. But we know, for instance, with water and wastewater as one of them, that directly ties to economic development. That directly ties to our ability to bring in major business. And so I think that relationship needs to stay strong. And then luckily, because we have someone like Trevor at the helm, that he's always looking for, he's really keyed into investors, really keyed into the agri-food sector, into technology and that kind of stuff. So he's kind of filling the gap on some other areas that I know that council is heavily interested in, but not necessarily the one that we're directly advocating for on a daily basis.
And I feel that when we're talking advocacy, I mean, it's kind of the whole picture with economic development. And I know in the past it's been their way, and then they'll sort of tell us later. I mean, I'm generalizing, but I mean, I just feel that we need to be strong together, community together. I just need to be a strong relationship. That's my thought.
And perhaps with a more advanced advocacy framework, we can then start digging deeper into where council, what type of advocacy you might want to do in agri-food, or some of those other things that we're kind of playing more of a passive role that economic development is leading, and maybe we want to have more of a leadership role in some of those other areas. I think you meant, Councillor Campbell, you meant brighter together, like their slogan, right?
It's the summer burnt a couple of brain cells, so yeah, brighter together. Thanks.
Councillor Middleton-Hope.
Thank you. So I have a question in regards to what are we doing as follow-up? Have we conducted any analysis to determine the effectiveness of our advocacy initiatives and how to leverage new subjects and trends? So what's working and what's not working so well?
So what I would say is that the council, in terms of being formalized, we're fairly new into the formalized advocacy. Of course, we've always had mayor and council doing this as part of their jobs, but in terms of owning it and naming it, this advocacy committee was meant to be just ad hoc and just recently became permanent. So I would say we probably don't know other than just the stuff that the role of mayor or other advocates do, and that's something that we probably should be doing and tracking and reporting back on. Anything that we have sort of read or done research on or got information from consultants is there's 2 key times that you evaluate your advocacy efforts, in February and then September leading into Alberta municipalities. So that would be exact time that we could do that.
Yeah, and certainly consulting with other municipalities across the province to determine what the issues are that they're advocating for, their strategies in terms of how they're advocating, and how that might be leveraged here in Lethbridge. Whether we work with them on strategies, or strategizing really, or whether we go it alone. So that might be some helpful suggestions in regards to how we're able to move forward and make this process a little bit more effective in the future.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, thanks for that, Councillor Middleton Hope, because I know that a lot of the different advocacy work that is done by other communities, as you'd mentioned, and a lot of time they want support from other communities. And so, for example, the Mid-City mayors, we get together and we chat about different things that, you know, they're wanting to advocate for. And sometimes they'll say, can you please help us? Can you sign a letter? Can you, something that is going to benefit all of our communities? Now, there's some out there that I know that, one particular one that rings a bell is RCMP, for example. So they'd reached out, you know, can we get some help on that, signing a letter? A little more difficult on certain things because with us having a city police, now not that that would not affect us, but some of these different questions are out there. So listening to what all the other communities, their questions and what they're advocating for is important for us to have our ear to the ground so we can bring it back to administration and back to council to see if there's something that we want to follow along with as well. In addition to that, we may have things that we want to, you know, support from these other communities. EMS dispatch, you know, items like this. And so, yeah, making sure our ears to the ground and checking what other communities are doing is extremely important. I think as well our admin deal with admin from these other communities as well. Is that correct, Carly?
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that I don't know, Mayor Hagan, if you know exactly what the number of mid-sized mayors, communities, what the population of Alberta totals, but
1.15 million people, so.
yeah, so the whole mandate of that group specifically is to say, well, there's Calgary and then there's Edmonton and then there's everybody else, which may seem like smaller communities, but if they all get together and all take a stand on something that benefits, then that's a lot of the population of Alberta. So it's a strong group. And so exactly to the point of we do need to be working with those groups. All the intergovernmental people need to be working together. And I think even more specifically Lethbridge, because we're farther south and we don't get the luxury of driving 15 minutes into Edmonton to have these meetings. We have to kind of be a little bit louder down in the south just to make sure that we're not the ones that are a little more forgotten just because of our location, our geographic location.
But it's so important, and I'm glad you brought that up, Councillor Middleton Hope, because this advocacy work, it's strength in numbers, right? And so, of course, when you bring that up, it's, you know, it's not one community, it's multiple communities, and you talk to them, and majority of them, we have similar questions, concerns, issues within our communities, maybe not at the level as, you know, we may have something that requires much more attention than possibly another community, but they'll still work with us because it may be the same way when they have a concern in their community that may not really affect us as much, and so, but we still will hop on to help them through their process. So I think working as a number, like you say, this over 1.1 million people, that's a very strong voice, and we need to make sure that we keep that.
So I think what I'm hearing, maybe just if I could or if Advocacy Committee could let me know, is that maybe we are in the right spot, that a more robust framework is the right time for that, and that we could go away and look at that. And so we have what was a good start from council of the last term to say, don't forget about this stuff. Let's make sure that we get some of it down on paper so we can share our lessons learned, but that we can build on that to have something that is more inclusive of some of the stuff Councillor Middleton Hope said and some of the things that you're saying. Let's make sure we're not forgetting about EDL. Let's make sure that we're working really strong on, because one of the things that is, for example, is Alberta municipalities resolutions. So there's these things that we can just make sure that we're keeping on top of all the time and feeding back to this committee so it becomes a really active committee of ensuring that nothing is forgotten.
Thank you. I do have another question from Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Yeah, just to sort of tag into what you just said there, Carly, I think what we got first when we started was a really good framework. So that's what we worked through over this past year. And now it's time to build on that framework, increase what we're doing, and start working a little bit better with our partners within our community as well as province-wide. So really, I see it as sort of the next, what you're talking about and what my fellow colleagues have talked about is the next logical step in what we need to be doing. And I think that's definitely the way forward for us.
100%. So I think you've captured that, and I think it's similar to exactly what you were talking about earlier when we had met, that this is extremely important to be able to keep that. This framework going forward, and this review is important. We can add things continually and make sure that it's a strong voice.
And I think from an administrative perspective, these monthly meetings would be extremely helpful to ensure that we are always making sure we're bringing opportunities to the group to say we've observed this, or we know this is coming, or this is the deadline for Alberta municipality resolutions. And so because they're monthly, I think that's a really good opportunity for us to make sure that we're giving you the right information at the right time.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Kleisinger, for that presentation or collaborative conversation there. Thank you. So I do have a resolution here from Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, Advocacy Framework Review. Be resolved, the Advocacy Advisory Committee recommends that Council receive the Advocacy Framework Review as information. Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
I think we're seeing some really good progress in our advocacy as we move forward as a council. So if nobody has any additional questions or comments, I will call the vote on that.
Question's been called. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll move on. And you're not getting out of your seat yet, Ms. Kleisinger. We've got 6.2, an update on Alberta municipalities, and Team Lethbridge, a verbal update. Go ahead.
I wanted to thank Advisory Committee for letting us bump this meeting up a little bit. We got it a little earlier because we realized it was when some of you would be at Alberta municipalities, and we thought it would be more prudent to have this conversation beforehand. So thank you for that. We have two kind of key events coming up. Just wanted to provide first an update on Team Lethbridge administratively, and then feel free to add in any of your thoughts. But for those of you who aren't aware, Team Lethbridge is scheduled for November 1st to 3rd. What we have done is we will be providing bios of those attending, and then there's some mandatory training that I know that you are sort of keyed in on. So from it, we have paid for 3 spots, and typically one of them is reserved for administration and then 2 for council from those spots, and then others do go sometimes. Other council members have attended in the past as representative of another organization. So the delegation, and this is just a point of conversation that I want to just confirm, is our city manager, Mr. Brierley, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, and Mayor Higgin. Is that what we know to be true of this time? Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, just wanted to confirm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good.
And sort of based on the framework of what we're seeing as a good pattern and something easy for us to define roles and responsibilities, is that for Advocacy Committee, we purposely picked the rotating 3 of the same as Agenda Review Committee, so that each councillor gets to have an opportunity to be involved in advocacy and play that role, but then also for ease of Mayor Higgin of the key advocate to know who to turn to as kind of the next two working on some of his initiatives and then trickling it down to council. And so I think we'll sort of follow that model if it works to everyone to go Mayor Hagan and then acting mayor and deputy mayor as sort of the next two in line, and then decisions to be made from there. And so we will provide that information. And then just to be aware, there was a lot of discussion on Team Lethbridge about attendance this year. It was canceled because of COVID, but then the outcome of the leadership race and the cabinet shuffle may impact the mission. And so after October 6th, there may be some changes to Team Lethbridge, but I think that would be a group discussion at that level.
Councillor Middleton, no?
You may have stated it, but I didn't hear it. Team Lethbridge is going where? They're going to AUMA?
Thank you. That's actually a good question, Councillor Middleton Hope. Team Lethbridge is a community group, and maybe someone who's attended would even have a better description of it. But it's organized by Trevor Lewington at Economic Development Lethbridge. But it's essentially a group of delegates that goes up to Edmonton on behalf of Lethbridge to speak to many government officials on Lethbridge priorities as a community.
Okay, so I'm familiar with the process. It doesn't say that, and you didn't articulate it whether Team Lethbridge is going to Edmonton to speak to government officials, or whether they're going to the Alberta municipalities meeting coming up in the fall. So now I understand. This is a group of members from the city, generally from the city, from a variety of different agencies who will be going up to Edmonton to advocate on behalf of the city?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I get it.
That's exactly it. And generally, it's here we are. This is we're from Lethbridge. Here's some of our struggles here. There's generally not asks, and it's interesting because we just wanted to go up and create relationships with the government from these different agencies that are in Lethbridge. Yet asks do come because we don't go with asks. We just want to have that opportunity to build those relationships. But they'll say, "What are there things that you're looking for?" So we build on that, which has been great. This is what mission is this? This is, I want to say it's is it the 9th?
I think it's the 8th.
It's the eighth mission, and it's been extremely successful. And it's groups everything from a seniors organization to our housing bodies to what are some of the others that we've got? Gosh, there's so many of them. A lodging association, tourism, multiple different groups from Lethbridge.
So we're talking about taking a caravan up to Edmonton?
It is a bus that leaves from here and goes up to Edmonton.
And only 3 members from council?
3 members from council. So we're each member in this group have 3 delegates that go up. So they choose who those 3 delegates are. So for example, if you had the senior center, they would pick 3 different delegates that would go up on their behalf. Some of them split, so it might be 2 from one and 1 from another, and that's how that happens.
And do we host discussions with various ministers?
Absolutely, yeah. So you'll get those groups. Say, for example, if it's housing, if we're going to go meet the Minister of Seniors and Housing, then usually that group will be led by someone in housing here that has the experts in that field. They're the ones that meet at that table. So not everybody that goes meets with every minister. It's those groups that have the expertise in that field.
So I'm familiar with it. I just think the public probably needs to hear what that is, because I don't think it wasn't clearly explained. So
nope.
I think they now have a pretty good understanding for it.
Yes, absolutely. Great question.
So
I'm sorry, we got one more. Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel?
No, I was just gonna, you covered everything that I was going to add to it, just the different groups. There are 30 to 32 organizations that participate in Team Lethbridge.
Awesome.
So just as that additional information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
So Team Lethbridge, if the 8th one, that's a fairly well-oiled machine that will participate in that way. And then the other one is Alberta Municipalities Conference that I'm not sure on the final count of councillors who are in attendance, but any councillors who choose to go to that, as well as Mr. Brierley, who will attend that one. And the work that we're doing behind the scenes is, from an administrative perspective, is looking at the resolutions that other council or other communities have brought forward and what that means for council and which ones you may wish to partake in some of those discussions. Lethbridge City Council didn't put any forward ourselves this year, so it'll be more about the support for some of the other municipalities. So council delegates will get a binder full of the information required to be successful. Some of the stuff that we're working on as well as those advocacy plans for the 4 topics that I had discussed. And then I would say that anyone attending, if they're looking for any more intergovernmental information on any of the topics that's not covered, that based on, you'll get basic information and then advocacy plans and then anything else that you're looking for.
Excellent. And correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have any coming from Lethbridge at this time, as you mentioned, right? We didn't have anything over the past. But voting on the resolutions, we'll have a sit down and go through what other communities are, talking about what we did earlier of how we can help advocate for other communities. We'll go through those and speak with admin to find out, exactly what and how we can help those communities. Is that correct?
Yeah, some of them Lethbridge may have a stance on. So there's I think 8 or 9 coming out of infrastructure. So our infrastructure director has gone through and we've provided a stance on those. So council will be able to see administratively where Lethbridge stands, should you be asked. But as part of the advocacy efforts, I would say that it would be something worthwhile for this committee to discuss how we might be involved in some of those resolutions moving forward.
What's really important about that is going to Alberta municipalities is we advocate to Alberta municipalities for the community to know, and they are a very strong advocate to the provincial government. So it's important that we get these, if we do have any questions, any resolutions we want to bring forward, or supporting other communities, that we're there to participate and help with those different resolutions and ask any questions that are needed, because again, they're a very strong advocate for communities when they're going to the provincial government. So, and all being members of that Alberta municipalities. With that, is there anything else to add, Ms. Kleisinger?
That was it. Just wanted to let this committee know that we're working behind the scenes on any information that's required, and that it's an open invitation to just ask us if there's something you're specifically looking for to make sure that we're included in the package.
Thank you. With that, I do have a resolution from Acting Mayor Croson that an update on Alberta municipalities and Team Lethbridge. Verbal, be it resolved that Advocacy Advisory Committee received the verbal update on Alberta municipalities and Team Lethbridge as information. Acting Mayor Croson.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, I'll need a motion to go in closed session.
I can make the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Acting Mayor. And we are now in closed session. It'll take just a few minutes to move over. don't have this being broadcast now anyways, do we? We're done, I believe.
We're back live now.
Are we back live? Okay.
Okay.
All right. I do have a resolution here from closed session from Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, Intergovernmental Relations Matter 7.1. Be resolved that the Advocacy Advisory Committee direct that the closed meeting discussions, documents, reports with respect to intergovernmental relations matter remain confidential pursuant to Section 21, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 25, harmful to economic and other interests of a public body, of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And further be resolved that the Advocacy Advisory Committee recommends City Council proceed with the confidential recommendation presented in today's closed session. Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
He's frozen.
I think Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, you are frozen in time. Councillor Croson, would your Deputy, holy smokes, it's only Monday. Acting Mayor Croson, would you move that?
Yes, questions called.
All in favor? And Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, we'll just have that she was not on, but we do have 2 of the 3, so that will make it to council. Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned.
See you all later.
See you later. Thank you.